Hey, what's going on everybody? Brandon Charleston here, recording another video on all things AI automation so you can save money, save time, and also make more money in your business. So in this video, I want to go over a 201 version of how AI works, particularly with AI agents, and we're going to go a little deeper, get our hands a little bit dirty when it comes to use within AI. If you haven't already watched my 101 version, I encourage you to watch that just so I don't lose you on the foundational things of how to interact with AI and how to best use the model, how to best spend your money when it comes to tokens and consumption and things like that, and also to get just the best use of AI in everyday lives. And so in this video, I'm going to cover AI agents. We're going to cover on what that looks like so you can get a good understanding on, what it actually means when you're using an AI agent, because there's a buzzword with AI and there's definitely a buzzword with AI agents because people are not quite sure. They're testing different use cases on how to use agents. And then in this example, this video rather, we're going to go over Claygent, which is an AI agent within Clay. If you're not already familiar with Clay, I post a lot about it. I scream about it because it's just that damn good. And it's a good tool to really add to your tech stack and all things when it comes to just processing data, sales, automation, anything really. I can't think of a use case where Clay doesn't come in clutch. So with that said, let's dive right in and we'll get it started. So this particular screen, I have an automation platform called N8N. They're very similar to Make.com and Zapier, which is more commonly known. N8N is a little bit more advanced and it requires a little bit more of a learning skill, but it's still very good. I have a community or self-hosted version on my website, Top of Funnel, which is awesome. Basically, you can run as many automations as you want. If you're not already aware of that, I definitely encourage you to check out N8N. It's definitely a very powerful thing for what I use. So in this example, what I have is a workflow, which is just an agent demo. And so it gives you a visual on what that actually looks like in terms of actually, what happens. So with an AI agent, right, there's a buzzword on what is AI. So AI, if you really think about it, to put in layman's terms, no pun intended, it's just a brain, right? It is a computer where it is trained on a lot of different data sets, and it has processing power, which is what it's able to digest and reason and come up with an output that you want it to. And so it's no different than if you had a conversation with a person. What you're essentially saying is a prompt about information, and then when you think about it, that person that received your message has to process it in their head, and then they're going to respond with something, right? If you ask, what time is it? Your head is going to say, oh, let me check my watch, right? And then you're going to output a time, right? So not to compare us to computers, but that's kind of the overview of the 101, if you will. And so when you think about an AI agent, what you're doing is you are putting the brain or the LLM, right? And you are giving it power to actually execute on something. So think of it like this. If you have a person or an employee and you're saying, hey, what is this, right? You're interacting messages and all you're doing is exchanging information. That is AI as it is without any sort of execution task, right? When you have an AI agent, what you're doing is you're actually giving it a tool, right? And you are prompting it, and then it is using that tool to execute on that job. So in this visual, I'm going to say a chat trigger, and then you could see the AI agent has three different things. It has, number one, the model. So this is going to be essentially the brain that it's going to use to compute your prompt, and then use the tools to be able to interpret and receive that data, whether it's scraping a website, whether it's calculating something or programming something. You're essentially extending its ability to do something. So think of it like a mechanic. You have a mechanic who has all the knowledge they need in order to fix your car, right? Like, I need you to fix my check engine light. Well, they're going to have the knowledge to figure out what that check engine light is, but then they're not going to be able to actually process that and fix it and diagnose properly without some sort of tool. It could be a scanner to learn what the code is, right? Could actually be a wrench or something to take apart that piece of the engine and replace it, right? So it needs tools in order to execute. It can't just think on it and then execute on that task. This is no different with an AI agent. So what I'm doing is, this is just an example of how I can attach this model to different LLMs. So we have OpenAI, we have Gemini, we have Mistral, and then we have Claude, and then we have Meta's Llama 3. And these are just examples. There's obviously a lot of other types of LLMs out there. But then the tool that I gave it is just a SERP API. And what a SERP is no different than a search engine results page. It's no different than you going on Google and doing some research, right? So this is just allows us to talk with it on the back end and be able to prompt it with doing a Google search and doing some research. The other thing which I don't have attached here is a memory, and really just be able to retain information. So it's no different than our brains of being able to absorb and remember things and remember an ongoing conversation. On a particular conversation, right? So, for example, here we'll just do the chat trigger, and we'll say, look up SpaceX.com and tell me what their services offer. We're just going off on a whim here. So it's taking just a little bit of time. Okay, perfect. So you can see here what it did is it used, this is just the instructions for what it did, but this is my actual output. And you can see here, no different. I did a test with Claude. We'll start a new conversation here. And not to get too long-winded, but when you're interacting with a chatbot like Claude or ChatGPT, again, this is on a one-on-one basis where there's an ongoing conversation, so it's going to remember the context. And then when you're interacting it with an API, there's a lot of different areas such as memory, and sometimes with Clay, we are doing it on a row basis where there's not necessarily a history behind it. So it's whatever the context you give it for that one prompt, you essentially have one shot, right? And so with that, what we want to do is, we're just going to continue on. I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. So you can see right here, Claude does not have access to the internet. So that is a key thing here because it doesn't have the tool to connect to the internet, right? And do research. So we know that it's not going to give us the prompt we want, but that is the difference, right? Of being able to execute with an AI agent to be able to know. It's no different than you and I having a conversation and I ask you, hey, tell me what this is. And you say, oh, I actually need to go on my phone or go on the computer and use that as a tool to research so I can give you the information you're looking for, right? So that is an agent overview on how they work, right? And so what you're doing is you're attaching different LLMs and a tool to be able to execute on a particular task. So in the case of Clay, if we go to create new table, and we're just gonna make a one-off. We're gonna say find people on LinkedIn. We're going to target owners, and we're just going to have a very short list here. Let's move my face. Let's see, location. We'll keep it to United States. And we're just going to limit results to 25, for example. We'll just do a small sample. Hopefully that'll be enough. It's taking a little bit of time here. Doesn't usually take this long. Maybe it's a large, very large, I mean, all the owners in the United States. That's a large pool. So while that's going, let me just cover the other side of different models. So the common ones we have that are most popular are GPT, right? Made by OpenAI. We have Claude, which is made by Anthropic. So they're definitely taking the reins, their title, however you want to, slice it there. and they are there's Claude, there's GPT, and then there's a number of other popular ones as well that are coming out left and right. And so one other ones that I foot stomp all the time because I do believe that it's a really, I mean, I use it every day. So if you don't use it every day, you're just missing out. What can I say? But Cohere is really catching some good traction, and you could see just by their Rolodex here, the bottom part. They're used by quite a bit. I mean, Notion uses them, Oracle. There's a lot of enterprise companies that use them, and it's because of their specific design that it's so relevant. And so with AI models, you are going to get an output, and it could be very right or could be very wrong. And if it's very wrong, we call that hallucinating, right? And so it's essentially giving you a very confident, like, yes, this is the correct answer. But you look at it and you're thinking, what the hell are you talking about, right? And so, Cohere's approach, especially at an enterprise level, is to reduce hallucination by doing what you call grounding. And so when you ground a model, what you're doing is you're giving it a connector, or you're giving it a database, like your internal database from an enterprise perspective, to say, look, this is the information. I'm giving you a manual. Do not give me anything outside this manual, right? So it's kind of like a dictionary. You're saying, hey, only give me words that's in the dictionary. It's not going to give you any fluff. It's not going to give you any words that are not inside the dictionary. So you're essentially grounding it. And this whole concept is called RAG. RAG is retrieval augmented generation. And so what it means is that you're essentially giving it a connection to something to extend its database. It's extend its data set and the way it's trained. So Cohere have a chatbot called Coral, and I encourage you to try it out. They have different models. They have Command as their lineup. They have Command R Plus, Command R, things like that. So I encourage you to check out their API and learn more about what it actually entails. Some of the use cases here, I'm actually playing with their re-rank, playing with their other forms through their API to see how it could be used in my business and my process here. But I encourage you to try out Coral, and all I did is click on Coral. But you could see here that you have different options. You have just chat, and you have web search, and you have analyze files. So if you just chat, it's not going to have any sort of grounding. It's just going to, be any other chatbot, like Claude or anything like that. And what you're doing is you're interacting based on what it's trained. But when you actually ground it, and if I just hit grounding, for example, I have connectors, and the connector, which is essentially the tool, is its ability to search just across the web, no different than doing a Google search, right? You're kind of sending it on a wild goose chase, which your results may vary. I don't encourage that on a whole lot of use cases, because you just never know what output you're going to get, especially when you're using it as a sales development tool like Clay or things like that. But if you're really trying to do as much research as possible and get citations and get accurate results, then I encourage you to send it on a wild goose chase. But extending that, especially in Clay, if you were to use Cohere's LLM, and then you use the web search connector, and then what you do is you attach one specific website to that connector, it's only going to go to that website. So it's kind of sort of an AI agent, but it's essentially an LLM with a tool. It's not going to actually execute on something or really scrape or understand, but it's gonna research that information for you, and it's a connector, right? So I guess kind of sort of you can call it an AI agent, and holistically here. So not to get too long-winded, but that's essentially the same task, the same output of what you're getting, right? The other thing too is you can have it, you can drag and drop files here, and it's going to ground it. So if you were to go to Claude and you put a PDF in there, yes, it's going to screen the PDF, and it's going to use its data sets to interpret and give you an output you want, but it's not necessarily grounded to that PDF, if that makes sense. So essentially, if I give you a book and I say, hey, tell me about this book and what it actually means, the person or the AI agent is going to look at it and give you its interpretation or whatever you ask for. But if I say, here's a manual to a vehicle or whatever, and this is your reference, what you have up here, and this is your reference do not give me anything outside of that. Now it's going to refer to that as a source versus actually looking at it and giving you a response on that. So there are differences to that, and that's why it's important to kind of understand what it actually means to have a RAG model. And so RAG is actually expanding widely on a lot of areas to different models, so I would definitely be aware of that. But Cohere has definitely taken it by storm, and at an enterprise level, clearly they're doing well there. So they have a great API. It's very affordable. It's comparable to like GPT 3.5, but look at the pricing. You know, I don't want to timestamp this particular video, but I would just say that, you know, the pricing is always changing, so it could change tomorrow for all we know. So let's check back on Clay. All right. For some reason, it came back with farmers insurance for everybody that's an owner in the United States. All right, let's go with it. Just to make sure. Oh, 25 people per company. That was the mistake I did. Let's just do this. I selected the wrong limit. My apologies. So as far as AI is concerned, we're going to do a use case here. We're importing a specific amount of people. So now we have company domain. So one common thing that we do for Claygent, so we're just going to add enrichment, and we're going to do Claygent. And we're going to use AI Web Scraper. And you have two scenarios here. You can use Clay's API, which obviously costs credits there. There's also some limitations depending on what model you look into and what you use. But I encourage you, especially in your use case, if you're going to use AI quite a bit, just get your own API. So it's interesting because it says OpenAI API key. Maybe it just hasn't updated yet, but we can see we're going to use my GPT one. But the other part too is if I go to run settings, where's it? Oh, model. So this is this just came out this weekend, so I'm sure they're going to clean up the UI here. But what we now have the option to do is we have the option to use GPT, and then we also have the option to use Claude. So you can see here, just for visual purposes, the cost versus the quality, right? But it's especially important to be familiar with which model you're going to select. And this all goes down to think of it like this. Every LLM is going to have certain parameters that it was trained on. So sometimes it'll be 70 billion parameters. Sometimes it'll be, it's usually rated by their parameters. And it could be 1 billion parameters, could be 1 trillion. The models just get bigger and bigger. So the bigger the brain, the bigger the LLM, the more expensive it's going to be. And then the smaller one, so that's obviously going to be more cost effective. So when you're selecting the different models to use in any case, whether it's through an agent or a task, you want to ask yourself, how big is this task that I'm trying to get? And you wouldn't ask necessarily a genius to do a 5-year-old task, right? Such as, put stamps on envelopes or something like that. But you wouldn't ask a 5-year-old to research the internet and give you the most creative ad copy or email creative that you could ask for as well, right? They're going to be that's paradoxical in that sense. So what you want to do is, if you're asking a big task, then you want to use a bigger model. And if you're trying to do more administrative or medium, and then you're better off selecting a medium or a lower type of model just to execute that task, right? So one very simple one that I use every day is first names. Now I could use a formula because it's very strict and it is or it isn't. So using a formula will help when it comes to normalizing first names. But sometimes I use a small AI model to really make sure that the first name is dialed in, especially at scale. So if I'm working with lists, in the 5 to 6 figure range, like 50,000 plus people, sometimes the formula is not always going to be consistent. So I add a little bit more AI touch to that to make sure that the first name is always going to be dialed in. So yeah, that's just a scenario there. And so Not to get, again, too long-winded, but essentially you want to select the best one here. So you don't always want to select Opus, which is very costly to do a very simple task, right? So we're just going to select Haiku here, which is a low-cost one. We're going to say, just like this example, visit the company. We'll do /. I'm gonna keep it consistent here. All right. I am not spelling properly here. Okay. Now, what I did is I'm giving it a prompt, but now what I want to do is control the output. I want to ensure that the output is consistent and it's not going to go too wild, right? So the other thing we could do is there are templates. I guess this might not be the case with Claude, but if you use GPT, you can have certain controlled outputs. There's additional ones. They might be expanding on that. But since we're using Claude, we're going to save that, and we're going to run on the first 10 to see what that looks like. So now what it is doing is it's actually visiting the website, and it's interpreting my prompt. Interesting. I do have a... I'm going to have to check on that. Let me pause this video and make sure. Alright, we're back. So it appears that with the new release here, they're still working some UI interface issues, and so my Claude API key is definitely in the system. So I use Claude every day, but it looks like they haven't quite put it into the Claude version of the agent. So they're working through that right now, but essentially you get the idea. So what I did is I just went ahead and changed it to GPT 3.5 just for the sake of this video, and you can see here it'll give me reasoning, and then this is essentially the output. So it's telling me what companies here are B2B or B2C. Now another thing that's really good about Clayagent is if you notice here, if you click into the actual one here, you're going to see confidence. What I like to do is, and I didn't put in the scenario, but it's just a good thing to always keep in mind and put in here, is to say something, execute something based on its confidence level. Only output. Man, I cannot type today. Yeah, so sometimes you will see. Interesting. Okay. Well, it basically talked like I'm talking right now, like you're a second grader. So anyway, you'll see with the confidence level, sometimes you'll notice in your responses that it might be 90, it might be something else. So here we go. This is a perfect example. Confidence 0. So I wasn't able to decide. So in this case, I would probably use a larger model, or I would investigate more on why I cannot determine. And so you're going to want to, so you can see here, this is 95. So confidence level is something that you want to keep in mind, and it's really good to make sure you're QCing your responses and making sure that you're getting the response that you want. Because if it outputs something and it executes on something and it's like 90% confidence or less, then it's probably not going to be good information. In this case, you would just call it hallucinating, right? So you don't want it to give any sort of false positives, right? So that is an overview as far as AI agents. So if you haven't already subscribed or liked the video, I'd really appreciate that. It helps me out trying to grow this channel and and help everybody that I can in terms of learning all things Clay, AI automation. And so without further ado, I really appreciate you watching this, and let me know if there's anything else I can do to help. Take care.